I want to encourage you to listen to your brain. Here's some great tips, what I mean by that. One of besides sleep, another essential way to heal is through movement. So one of the reasons why, and we work in schools and we help teachers realize this so they don't think it's a bad kid when a kid is very active, or they don't think ADHD and there's not a lot of unnecessary labeling going on. Oftentimes when humans have stress, they need to move, and you see it more in young kids. And that movement, why? Because the movement is healing. And part of the reason why our Western culture has such a problem with releasing stress and why it's become a part of the cultural air that we breathe is because we lack movement. We're very sedentary. Is anyone here in this room, and I know there's one, it's my husband, anyone else have some health or back problems because you sit too much? Oh, he's there. My kids are raising their hands. So dance, yoga, EMDR, there's tons of studies on this. Dance is just as effective as yoga. Hey, that's great. Who knew? Any kind of movement, especially, so what happens, and this is EMDR is a kind of therapy. Actually, the Malibu Foundation had a great grant where we provided free EMDR therapy. And what that produced was a cross-lateral right hemisphere, left hemisphere crossing of the corpus callosum. My kids know this neuroscience. Orion, where's your corpus callosum?
I don't know.
Oh, well, it's in the middle. There's a review. It's in the middle.
It's the LCO, the 2 lobes of your brain.
That's right. Ocean's got it. So this is so important. And again, you can talk to your kids about this because the corpus callosum, anything that you do that crosses, this is called the midline. You have your corpus callosum here and the body is sort of cut in half. Any movement that you do that crosses what's called the midline here, such as, even reaching this way or that way, or Brazilian samba. What country are you guys from? Uruguay.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I can't, no. What's the kind of dancing in Uruguay? Is there a particular? The tango, okay. Well, there's some bilateral crossing the midline in tango. I won't do them for you right now. But in many cultures, and this is the beauty of the wisdom of humanity, for centuries, we instinctively knew what to do with our bodies, right? Even tribal cultures all around the world, still, they use dance as a form of healing, right? Shamans all over the world. And dance, as you know, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna do it. I'm not shy. Okay, this is the typical Brazilian Jenga, they call it. And this is a capoeira move. Do you notice I'm crossing the midline, right? So this particular dance, this capoeira, and there's much more advanced move that looks much more interesting than what I'm doing, but you get the point. Even just this simple move, or even just going back and forth, with your hands like this, it really creates that neurological movement that helps move the stress along. So this Brazilian capoeira comes from the African slaves are brought to Brazil, and they started to use capoeira as a form of healing. And to this day, it's considered a very sacred art. People think it's a martial art or a dance. It's actually more of a healing circle. It's called the roda. So it's all over the world and very, very helpful. Of course, people always say, well, take a deep breath. That's great. But just like positive affirmations, if you don't do them regularly, they don't work, right? Your brain calls BS. Take a deep breath. Well, it's not going to work unless you regularly take deep breaths, because it just feels like this inauthentic behavior. So the way Thich Nhat Hanh does it, I like Thich Nhat Hanh. He's my favorite monk because he's very practical. He likes doing meditation when he's washing dishes or when he's driving in the car. And it sounds dangerous, but it's not. Every time there's a stoplight or a stop sign, he just takes a breath. When he travels, of course, not when he's in his monastery. It would be hard to be in traffic. But we have the advantage of practicing this a lot, right? So I'm recommending that you add something to your schedule. Although we do have great resources here in Malibu, welcome. We have 2 meditation centers that just opened, one at Trancas and one down here at Cross Creek, which that's great. Anything people do in the group also creates community. And you can also do it in your car at the stop sign when you're doing the dishes. Focus on how the water feels when you're doing the dishes. Has anyone had this experience when they sort of get into this? You know what I mean, Madeline? What was it like for you?
It's very relaxing, and I do the dishes last thing before I go to bed because it's sort of a meditative thing for me.
Okay.
I had a funny story. The house we are in renting, and we went through all this, dishwasher was broken. And I took about 6 weeks to get it fixed, and finally when the guy came to do it, he's like, you know, you didn't have to wait so long, and because I didn't push them. They knew about it, they didn't push them. And I said, it was okay. It was like my therapy. It was just to do the dishes, just to hand it. Was, yeah.
So you never know where you find these therapies, and it isn't just, there's actually a neurological effect to them,
Yeah.
right? So it's very powerful, and again, it's a practice. These things don't work unless they're practiced. Also, eating healthy fats myelinates your neurons. Who here has gone swimming without a wetsuit in the California Ocean? Everybody should be raising their hand. Who here has gone swimming with a wetsuit in the California Ocean? Which is more comfortable? Besides getting it off and on, which is a pain.
Yeah.
But right, you're more comfortable being warm. You're myelinated, is what I like to call it. So myelination occurs when you have healthy fat around your neuron. You remember that picture of the neuron with the dendrites? It's like a wetsuit for your brain cells. And that happens only when you eat certain healthy fats. So for my vegan and vegetarian friends, flaxseed oil is great, but you have to have a lot more of it than fish oil. Krill oil is also great. Chia seeds and walnuts. There's actually not a whole lot of things that myelinate your brain in this particular way. These are really essential, and what it does is when the cortisol and adrenaline flood through your brain, which happens, by the way, just guess how many times a day it happens.
200, 300, 400, a trillion.
12.
1. Maybe or something.
Most people say 1 or 2. But yeah, it could happen 200 or 300 a day. It's possible. And every person's different. My point is that it happens regularly throughout the day, and it's unpredictable. You know what I mean? When you're driving is the best example. So having this myelination of your neurons protects that when these stress hormones come in, so your neurons are protected. They're in their wetsuit, so to speak. And then headaches, drinking more water instead of going immediately to the aspirin is important, because also anytime you put something in your body, it just creates another thing for your brain to have to figure out what to do with it. So this is not a talk on antidepressants or anti-anxiety and medication and all that. But the more you take of that, the less your brain produces the antidote to it naturally. So just to be mindful of that, and always to try water first. Probiotics for your gut, and do you know we have neurons in our gut? Isn't that the weirdest thing? They only discovered this 10 years ago or so. It's bizarre. So you know, we've been talking about it for generations. It's gross. It's weird, right? People have been talking about it for generations. You know, I just feel it, I have a gut feeling, that expression. Well, they actually, literally, we do have a gut feeling. So that's why probiotics are so important. And they have great gummies, I have to say, that taste great. You don't have to taste a bunch of disgusting, there's great options. All right, I want to give you something something strong to take with you so that you can have some motivation to do what I'm going to teach you about next. So this is your brain. Orion and Ocean, would you come up here and help me out and be my volunteers? So Ocean, I'm going to have you be in charge of the amygdala. Orion, you're going to be in charge of the hippocampus. Okay, so Ocean, can you tell us about what the amygdala does?
The amygdala, the smoke detector of the brain,
identifies whether incoming input is relevant for our survival, signals danger by releasing stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol into the body, which increase rate of breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure, preparing us to fight or flight.
Thank you. All right, Orion, tell us about the hippocampus.
The hippocampus relates new experiences to past experiences as a measure of memory and emotion.
Thank you. High five, buddy. Why is this important? What's happening when you have something, a huge stress like you losing your home, and how it relates to other stress in your life or other experiences of stress? This is the thing about the brain and our subconscious mind. It's not really logical, but what happens is this is what we saw again and again with people who lost their homes, but also people trauma or major stress, is it brings up so much from the past, right? And it either in dreams or in anxious energy or in big feelings of anger or sadness. And let me ask you this, for those of you who were here right after the Woolsey fire, did you notice something a little bit different in our community in terms of the intensity of the emotions right after the fire? Pretty different, right? What did you notice? Ocean.
People were a little bit more sensitive, I feel like. Like if you did like one little thing, they'd get irritated more easily.
Yeah, more easily irritated? Yeah. What else did you notice?
You know, I wouldn't say it was negative. I mean, I felt this with the fires when I was in New York with 9/11, that there was like an emotional presence of connectivity
Yes.
surrounding sort of the trauma.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's the beauty of a trauma or a stress, is that it allows us to be in this vulnerable place of connectivity, right? Which is what we were talking about in the beginning. And often, otherwise life just sort of goes on and we forget to go there. So it's very essential. So this is also a model of the brain. This is one of my mentors, Dan Siegel. This is his favorite little model. He just takes a little hand, and this is the frontal lobe. This is this brain stem. And all of this action right here with the amygdala is underneath, right? So it's sort of the thumb, if I take my thumb like this. So there is an expression that we say in neuropsychological terms, people say we flip our lids. And that means that the amygdala, this is a good thing to teach your kids too, right? That the amygdala is in control. And the amygdala is like, fight, flight, freeze, something's wrong, what's wrong, don't sleep, there's a lot that you have to worry about, there's so much you have to do, right? And it's not logical. So when your lid is flipped, you're dealing with the primitive part of the brain instead of your frontal lobes, which are a more evolved part of our brain. This part is almost off key, it's offline.